morning. Pems listen to VOA, Japanese English listening material site. I hope one of the ways to study English from my experiences. Number 2 in my experience. I feel that a good English test score is a good candidate for passing most tests. This means that other subjects may be slightly worse, and English learning methods can be applied to other things. When you say that it doesn't go well, you can realize that if you do it diligently, the consequences will open up. Even if you don't know why you know yourself as a national language. English as a foreign language can be traced back to this, so it can be applied to other purposes. The old English education was terrible. Even college was terrible. There was no practicality at all. I read the English newspaper myself or subscribed to the English weekly magazine. But time, etc., were usually carried around, but in fact they were not easy to read. It caught other people's eyes when carrying around, but I was surprised. Studying abroad, a local college student reads time without a dictionary on the bus. No wonder, because it's English-speaking country. She uses English since she was a child. It is natural for Japanese students to read Japanese novels in train. Time was said to be rich in vocabulary. Never use the same word again in the same sentence. Even if it appears 3 or 4 times, different words and different expressions are used to represent the same meaning. Naturally speaking, even Japanese, if you use the same words many times, it's a level that says, is this a little bit? It is said that the writer or reporter is a well-educated person, so it is natural. But it is too high a hurdle to read it when studying. Therefore, concentration and relaxation, or reading with a dictionary and reading lightly, both become effective. This is nothing more than just a way to learn English. We actually use it for various things. For example, judo practice. You are said to do 100 throwing exercises. Practice intent throwing. Seniors and coaches point out if your action is bad and tell you the details. After practicing the technique that can be said to be a piece of pieces, the next step is to practice like a game. It's a normal match style. I'm glad if the throwing that I practiced earlier goes well in the game. The next step is to uchigari to increase techniques. It can be said to practice the piano. If you look at the piano teacher's way, she gives the lesson or student to practice the parts in the whole song in the same way. Maybe the same can be said for all. So I can imagine that Olympics and global athletes who are quite skilled and deeply trained in their specialized fields can be great in all fields. At first glance, they seem to be a little stupid because they haven't studied much else and can't spend much time reading books. I think they're really great. In fact, some foreign swimmer took several gold medals and after stopped swimming, he started studying proceeding to medical science. And then I think about sports and piano. They don't just learn. They practice. Learning the piano must be done until you can play the piano. However, in the case of English, it is not necessary for you to actually use it. To get a high score in the test is enough. I think this is common in Japan. The TOEFL and ICANN scores are high, but if there are foreigners, he feels that he will withhold a little. He doesn't use it although he likes English and has been studying. It's wasteful. No pianist can play the piano, and he knows judo theory well, but he can't even catch the opponent together. Is this funny? But it is very common in the English world of Japanese. That's why some teachers who are teaching at the famous high schools like Nara or Urawa say, I can't speak English. I guess the Nobel Prize-winning doctor I mentioned earlier was the same. If they talk, they can talk. I think they're not convinced that they've reached the point where they can speak more than they think they can do more. They can't forgive themselves when they get frustrated in public, but they say that they are teaching at Nara High School and Urawa High School, and I'm close to perfection in TOEFL. So they keep their dignity. There are more or less a lot. Let's talk. It's scary if a kindergarten child says the elementary school student or the junior high school student says. Like, I don't speak because I haven't reached my speaking level yet. After all, in the four fields of reading, writing, listening, and speaking, things that are not used do not develop much. Knowing and using it in a story is another matter. If you have a chance, use it. As I commented the other day, the synergy effect. It is better to take various approaches to fix it. For example, when you go to somewhere and have someone drive you, it is doubtful that you will reach the destination by yourself, but if you look at the map yourself and drive or walk yourself, you can almost certainly go again next time. There is also in memory art. Just remembering an item is confusing as its number increases, but it can be remembered along with something else reminiscent. Even if you try to memorize words, you cannot remember so much and it is not interesting. What is the etymology? What are the derivatives? If you remember it in connection with others, it will be learned and will not be forgotten. In my case, when reading aimlessly and reading carefully, when I meet an unknown word that came out and looked up, I felt inspired and pleased, but at first glance it seemed to be inefficient. But I realized that I could not remember even if I tried to remember it in the dark cloud. Then I stopped memorizing. One of my friends used a dictionary, and when he learned, he cut the page and ate it. It's like one scene of the comic book. Maybe 2/3 of the dictionary is left. It would be good for memories of youth. The strongest thing to remember her is that Sydney was pronounced Sidoni by me and laughed by people in the class. Japanese is made up of consonants and vowels. But there are times when English pronounces only consonants. Consonant immediately after the consonant, and the expression. It's from Shakespeare's Ara. Because the teaching material of the university is old, there is no help for it. But I wonder if we could provide a topic. In that sense, I also encourage you to use YouTube's Listen to VOA. Listen to and read the latest topics. Write your own diary, write a blog, or find something that suits you. Find foreign email friends and chat friends. Although this alone cannot be expected to be as effective, iron rules do not spend money on English. You will be so passive that you can't expect much progress. Do your own planning and design. Devise. Then you can fix it yourself later. Schools do things more for schools than for learners. I think there are some people who use English well in my experience. They read aloud many times after the concentration study when you finished writing Japanese translation. Don't memorize. Just read out. I'm done when I'm done with my notebook, and I'm reading a few times at best. But the number of people who can do English well, this number is not odd. They read 100 times or 200 times as in the practice of judo. As a junior and senior high school student, the assignments are completed sooner than the other children. And the rest of their time is spent reading textbooks. Every time, they end up reading 100 or 200 times. This has a significant effect. I read the textbook of junior high school 3 years textbooks almost 100 times, and I think it is good. This is also recommended by NHK English teachers. I think we can communicate with enough in 3 years of junior high school to speak. The rest is developed by listening. Here is an aside. Before, I heard that a little acquaintance told me she's making her baby hear English in the story of learning English, and I am very worried later. I want her to stop this. I often listen to English while sleeping halfway. But when I can hear the content, well, I cannot sleep, and if I want to sleep but English is spoken by the person who is next to me, I want to stop it, but I'm in my dream. So I'm hooked by a nightmare that I can't stop. I can't help it because I do it myself, but this is torture for babies. Please don't take your baby's calm and happy time. Don't impose your parents' selfish affection that English is important for your children in the future. I want you to speak in your mother's gentle Japanese as much as possible. When your baby is asleep, be quiet so baby can sleep deeply. A happy child can be acquired by himself if needed in the future. Moderately, it is important in everything. That's all. Thank you. Listen to VOA.